The Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian, its crystalline ceiling displaying the swirling nebulae of the Andromeda sector. Representatives from 47 civilizations occupied their designated pods, each species maintaining the careful protocols that had governed interstellar diplomacy for millennia. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the central podium, her simple gray uniform stark against the elaborate robes and biomechanical enhancements of her alien counterparts. The translation matrix hummed softly as she cleared her throat, preparing to address the most powerful governing body in known space. "Honored delegates," Elena began, her voice carrying across the vast chamber, "humanity requests permission to mediate the territorial dispute between the Zephyrian Empire and the Crystalline Collective." The reaction was immediate. High Chancellor Vextar of the Hegemony clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his species. The melodic chimes of the ethereal assembly grew discordant with amusement. Even the stoic Silicon Brotherhood flickered their optical arrays in what Elena recognized as their equivalent of mirth. "The humans," wheezed Ambassador Korth through his breathing apparatus, "wish to mediate between civilizations that have waged war for 3,000 years, species that were splitting atoms when your ancestors were discovering fire." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien laughter. Some delegates exchanged knowing glances through their various sensory organs. Others transmitted private communications through quantum entanglement, sharing what they surely considered the joke of the millennium. Elena waited patiently for the commotion to subside. She had expected this reaction. Earth's admission to the Galactic Council just 50 years ago had been met with similar condescension. Humanity was still considered the newest, most primitive member, barely worth acknowledging in serious political discussions. "With respect," Elena continued, "once order returned, humanity has successfully resolved conflicts before." "On your single world," interjected the crystalline form of Delegate Shimmering Thought, "you speak of tribal disputes and territorial squabbles. The Zephyrian crystalline conflict spans 17 star systems and involves weapons that could crack planets." "Perhaps," suggested the floating sphere that represented the Void Collective, "the humans could mediate a dispute between their own moon colonies first?" Another wave of laughter rippled through the assembly. Elena felt the familiar weight of being underestimated, a sensation every human diplomat had learned to carry. She touched the small communication device at her collar, a gesture so subtle that most species' sensory organs missed it entirely. "I understand your skepticism," Elena said, "but I would ask you to consider one thing about humanity." The laughter died down as delegates sensed a shift in her tone. "We are the only species in this council that has never been conquered." Confused murmurs filled the chamber. Several delegates consulted their databases, cross-referencing historical records. "That is incorrect," declared Chancellor Vextar. "Your species barely had rudimentary spaceflight when we first encountered you. You had no galactic presence to conquer." Elena smiled, a distinctly human expression that most species found unsettling. "I said we had never been conquered. I did not say we had never been threatened." The chamber fell silent. Elena's words hung in the air like a challenge to the natural order of things. "Every species in this chamber has a history of conquest and subjugation. The hegemony fell to the Silicon Brotherhood. The ethereals were absorbed by the Crystalline Collective before breaking free. Even the mighty Void Collective was once enslaved by the Zephyrians." Delegates shifted uncomfortably in their pods. These were historical facts, but rarely spoken aloud in polite galactic society. "But humanity—" Elena paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "Humanity has been threatened by extinction 16 times in the past century alone. Alien invasions, impossible odds, weapons beyond our comprehension. And yet, here we stand." The communication device at her collar pulsed once, a signal she had been waiting for. You mock our proposal to mediate because you see us as primitive. You forget that sometimes the most primitive solution is the most effective one. Elena gestured to the viewing screens around the chamber. I invite you to observe the Zephyrian border. The screens flickered to life, showing the contested space where two mighty fleets had faced each other in bitter stalemate for decades. But now something had changed. Floating between the warring fleets was a single ship, small, crude by galactic standards, bearing the blue and white colors of Earth. That is the UNS Defiant, Elena announced. My colleague, Captain Maria Santos, has positioned herself directly in the line of fire between your two fleets. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Several species began frantically contacting their military commands. The captain has broadcast a simple message to both fleets, Elena continued, her voice cutting through the chaos. She will not move. Any weapon fired at the other fleet will have to go through her ship first. The screens showed the reactions of both fleets, confusion, anger, and something that might have been respect. This is madness, shrieked the Zephyrian delegate. One ship cannot stop a war, Elena interrupted. You're right. One ship cannot stop a war, but one person willing to die to prevent unnecessary killing, that can stop anything. The crystalline collective's representative pulsed with agitated light. Your captain will be vaporized the moment either side fires. Yes, Elena said simply. She knows this. She volunteered anyway. For the first time in the chamber's history, complete silence reigned. 47 civilizations, some with billions of years of history, found themselves confronted by a concept so simple and yet so alien that their advanced minds struggled to process it. This is your proposal? Asked the Void Collective finally. Suicide as diplomacy? No, Elena replied. This is our promise. Humanity will stand between any two forces bent on destroying each other, no matter the cost to ourselves. We will be the conscience you've forgotten, the moral voice you've lost in your pursuit of galactic power. She looked around the chamber, meeting the sensory organs of every delegate. We cannot match your technology, your weapons, or your ancient wisdom, but we can offer something none of you can, the willingness to sacrifice everything for peace. The screen showed the Zephyrian and crystalline fleets slowly backing away from each other. The small human ship remained motionless between them, a tiny beacon of stubborn morality in the vast darkness of space. High Chancellor Vexitar was the first to speak. The Council recognizes humanity's proposal for mediation. The vote was unanimous. As delegates filed out of the chamber, many paused to study the small human at the podium. They had laughed at her proposal, dismissed her species as primitive and naive. None of them were laughing now. Elena touched her communication device one final time. In the depths of space, Captain Santos received a simple message. Mission accomplished. Come home. The age of human diplomacy had begun.